And today, President Bola Tinubu will present appropriation bill to a joint session, National Assembly. The total expenditure proposed is 27 trillion. Targets for revenue, 18 trillion naira. And we see there's a deficit there of about 9.23 trillion naira. Well, joining us to analyze this is Mr. Olatunde Amolegbe, MD, Arthur Stevens Asset Management Limited, joining me via Zoom. Good to have you on the show. Good morning.
Good morning, Ladi. My pleasure to be here.
Fantastic. Great to have you. So it's the appropriation bill. We're expecting to have that presented on the top of the hour. Today we'll be covering that live on Channels Television. Looking at the budgets there and the benchmarks we have there, we see the dollar is pegged at about 750 naira to the dollar. We see the crude price benchmark about $77.96. But definitely the government needs to fund this budget. We're seeing a deficit there of 9.23 trillion. Talk to me about what you're seeing when it comes to revenue generation going into 2024.
Well, it's clear that, we've run, budget deficit for a few years now. And those revenues, those gaps needs to be covered one way or the other. Typically, what the government does is to come to the market, to raise various financial instruments, bonds, and the likes. I suspect that a significant form of that will happen in 2024 to try and cover the revenue gap. What I have not seen or what I have not heard anybody say is also to have sales of public assets to try and fund these gaps. I think that privatization exercise, which sort of have gone into a lower help in the last few years, needs to be, revitalized, and so that more revenue can come from the sale of public assets that are not honestly being run very effectively at this time, which probably will do much better if they are in the hands of the public or private business people. So that element of raising financing to cover the revenue gap, I've not seen it yet. I hope it is there somewhere, but I suspect that there will be a lot of capital raising in terms of fixed income instruments coming from the government locally. I do not expect that we are going to see the government going into the Eurobond markets to raise Eurobonds because the rates are relatively high now. So this is how I expect that the gap will be closed.
Looking at domestic or local borrowing at this time, everywhere the rates have gone up everywhere, and we're seeing investors looking for more yields. At this time, talk to me about cheaper avenues for borrowing at this time. Is there any chance of this government actually getting cheaper borrowing compared to what we have these days, even if you're going to the international markets?
Sales of assets provides you the cheapest source of revenue, I would say. Rates are still going up. It is projected that rates will continue to go up. So relative to borrowing from the local markets, you have to benchmark your cost of borrowing to what the market rate is saying at the moment. I will expect that discussions with multilateral organizations such as the IMF and the Afro-Exim Bank and the likes could also help the government to raise funds, at concessional rates, that are not necessarily tied to markets, at a much cheaper rate, concessional rates to cover the budget gap. So that, for me, are the avenues by which you could possibly raise financing at rates that are not tied to markets.
Nigeria's capital market at this time, how far can the Nigerian capital market go in funding this deficit?
The market has been doing its part, for the last few years. We've seen that most of the bond issuances by the federal government have been taken up by local investors and foreign investors alike. A lot of the sukuks that the government has raised, have been significantly oversubscribed. So clearly, the Nigerian capital market has the capacity to be able to provide the financing for a whole, at least the local contents of the financing that will be required. So I do not expect that to change in 2004. I think the capacity is still there, in as much as the products have been are well designed, and they come to the market in the right form. The capital market has the capacity to be able to provide the necessary financing as far as I'm concerned.
So the House is set to convene a budget town hall meeting to enable citizens to make inputs into the 2024 appropriation bill. What do you think? What do you make of this? And for you, what would you like to add to this bill you're seeing at this time?
The decision to hold a budget town hall is an innovative one. Is a welcome one as far as I'm concerned, because at the end of the day, the budget is for the people. The representatives are supposed to consider the budget in the interest of the people. So any efforts to actually include the voice of the people in this process will always be welcome. I just hope that the process will be managed such that the actual will of the people is reflected in the outcome of the town hall, and ultimately reflected in the in the budget that will ultimately be approved by the representatives. Now, regarding the budget itself, the exchange rates, for which it was pegged, 750, might look relatively low now, but if you look at the aspiration of the government, the expectation that some of the efforts they're making to bring in foreign investments, or efforts they're making in order to attract more inflows into the country, will hopefully bring down the rates to something that looks closer to the peg they have chosen of 750. Regarding the oil benchmark that they have for the 1.7 billion barrels per day oil benchmark they have also chosen. If you look at the 3-year average we've seen, oil production has been something in the region of 1.5 billion barrel per day. And hopefully some of the changes they are making to increase production, to tackle insecurity, will enable them to achieve the 1.7 million barrels per day they are projected. So fingers crossed there. My main concern is the fact that we are still looking at 60-65% of our budget expenditure going into recurrent expenditures. So we are talking of payment of personnel expenses, payment of pensions, and the likes. That for me, it's just simply too high. We need to have a budget that focuses on production, a budget that focuses on increase in infrastructure that will enable us ramp up production, because it's with the ramp up of production that we can possibly increase the revenue that we are also having, and we are able to reduce poverty, we are able to reduce unemployment. But if you still have 65% of your budget going into recurrent expenditure, you are not able to spend as much on infrastructure and production, and that really is something we really need to work. We need to work on in the short to medium term. And you will find that even despite the fact that we are budgeting about 35% on infrastructure, at the end of the day, the portion of that 35% that gets released in terms of cash is even much lower. So, which means that what we are spending on infrastructure has been grossly inadequate over the years. With the renewed hope agenda of the present president, I expect that efforts should be made to push that spending on infrastructure forward quickly. Because that's the only way we'll increase production, and that is the only way we can reduce unemployment and poverty within our citizenry.
Right. This government definitely needs to rejig where most of the spending goes to at this time for us to actually increase production going forward. We've been talking production. I hope we can make that a reality going forward with this budget. Thank you so much for joining us, Mr. Olatunde Amolegbe, MD, Arthur Stevens Asset Management Limited. Thank you for coming on. All right, after the break.
Pleasure, ladies. Thanks for having me.
All right, after the break, we'll drill down on the oil benchmark price in the 2024 budget and the prospects of refining oil in Nigeria. That's our next conversation. Just stay with us.